Okay, so for those of you who don't know, my name is Andy Daster, joined here by Jacob Brown. On June the 17th of this year, North America and USA Health Plans developed and launched a partnership whereby we are providing distribution, communication support for USA Health Plans, and USA Health Plans focuses on its platform. USA Health Plans is not a carrier. It is not even a product. It is a platform for ACA compliant health plans that can be sold to people who are unsubsidized. So we'll go, and maybe even those that are subsidized. So I'm going to go through a little bit of an overview of what this is and why this is such a great thing. This has been around for a while. This is not new. Jacob has been running this thing 7-8 years. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Even back in the old crazy days of the ACA. But what's happened, guys, is that short-term medical, the market is largely, significantly changed starting September 1st, right? Coming up in a couple days. Indemnity plans work, but not for everybody. ACA plans work great if you're subsidized in particular or have some kind of chronic condition. But for people that are just looking for good old-fashioned major medical and are willing to pay the premium and want a national PPO network, really the only place to come is USA Health Plans. So, as I'd mentioned, USA Health Plans is not a carrier. It is not a product. It is a platform. We are North American, one of the largest independent insurance marketing organizations, independent from Wall Street, independent from insurance companies. So what's the benefit of the platform? You got multiple carriers, multiple products. You can do both individual and group, available in 39 states and DC. However, there are some things available in almost all states. So while our core offering is in 39, we got something everywhere. The beauty of this platform is that everything is consolidated with a single quoting, enrollment, billing, and even service platform all in one. And as you can see here, you can earn overrides. And so unlike so many other types of opportunities that in order to earn an override, you got to do all this stuff. You got to open up an agency. You got to have this and that. What's that, Tim?
No, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the beauty of this is you get one contract. It contracts you for everything, and then you can recruit anytime, anybody, any way you want. The way we're going to do it mechanically, I'll talk about in a little bit. Lynn literally has a link. Use Lynn's link. And Tammy with Jason will have something different link, but just simply use Lynn's link and have them put your name down as the referrer, and boom, you're going to get an override. And I'll explain exactly how much here in a minute. Tons of different products on this platform, but the workhorse is really PPO Major Med. I like this slide. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but part of the reason it's so important to have this entire platform and not just a single product is because this is a range of different products that are all going to be needed depending upon the health and budget of the applicant. You start on the left-hand side of your screen, the EBA with the Cigna PPO network, that's the Cadillac. That's where you got the best benefits, great prices, a heck of a good network, maybe the best one out there, covers pre-existing conditions, no waiting periods. However, you do have to be healthy because it does have full underwriting. And then as you move across the right hand from the left to the right, you're going to find plans that are more simplified issue or guaranteed issue. And because of that, there may be some benefit differences. Still got some great networks, including that Blue Cross National PPO network on the gig care product from America's Choice. So make no mistake, all of these are great. It's just a question of, where's Jason? It's just a question of what fits your client. But the beauty of this platform is instead of having to go to 20 different places to try to figure out where can I get an ACA alternative for my client, you go to one place, right? The way I like to think of it is when you guys sell like ACA plans, right? You go on to Health Sherpa, and you see all the different plans that are out there, and then you can pick whichever one fits your particular client and get them their subsidy. Well, think of this much of the same way for ACA alternatives. Everything you need is in a single platform. Hey, Jason, thanks for joining.
Andy,
Starting
thank you.
off, you bet. Starting off with that EBA product, the left-hand side, all the way off to the right where you have a guaranteed issue option. Again, you're gonna have lower benefits, but that's okay. I'm not gonna go through each of these plans, but what you're gonna see here is good old-fashioned major medical. And what you're gonna find pricing-wise is that it's about the price of an unsubsidized ACA. However, in some markets, it might be a little bit more. In some markets, it might be a little less. In certain ages, it might be a little more. In other, demographics, it might be a little bit less. But in general, that's how you should look at the pricing. The comp, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, is level $80. Sorry about that. And that is $80 level per month at the street. So if you're making $15 on an ACA, $20 on an ACA, or more than that, even if you're lucky, this pays 80. It's literally quadruple the monthly commission on an individual. Families are at 115. So if you just look at agent comp, there's just like nothing like it in comparison. You're not going to make that kind of money on almost anything else that you could sell. You won't make it on a short term. You won't make it on an indemnity plan. When it comes to comp, this thing really is the top comp that you can sell as an agent. And you're going to find, we're not going to go through all this in detail. It's pretty obvious, right? It's deductible, co-insurance with co-pays. There's HSA versions. You can read all this on your own. That's not really the purpose of this call. Also keep in mind, as we all love here at North American, all of these plans can be stacked. Jacob has put together these plans from Zurich. All of them are guaranteed issue, and you can stack accident, critical illness, hospital indemnity, and disability all onto a single sale. It's like a good old-fashioned corporate benefit plan structure, cafeteria where you can pick plans. All of them have a single quoting and enrollment experience. Don't forget the gig care product, like that product with that Blue Cross network. It's pricey, but that Blue Cross network, for some people, they really like that. Got America's Choice on here. Everybody's been talking about that. It's on here as well. Again, the nice thing is, yeah, you can enroll directly through America's Choice, but by having all of these in a single platform, quoting, enrolling, all in a single experience. And what's more important, maybe than anything, to guys like Lynn and Jason and I, is that we can stack those Zurich products on an America's Choice. You cannot do that if you write through America's Choice directly. They don't have any other plans. All they have is America's Choice or gig care. You cannot stack critical illness and accident and the like. Again, we're not going to go through all these different products. If you don't know how these products work, we'll certainly train you on it, but that's not really the purpose of this call. Oopsie. Got ancillary products like dental. That NCD dental products are a really strong one too. Good comp. BSP. For those of you who remember, we in the old days used to sell that Washington National Active Care. That's on this platform as well. Critical illness. As you can see, it's a huge portfolio, all in a single platform. Everything you saw also works for groups. So Tracy, it's like, hey, I'm talking to, Bill, and Bill says, hey, I appreciate talking about this on the individual, but I have a small company with 8 employees. Would this work? The answer is yes. Everything is the same. It works just the same way from a group standpoint. This is the group offering. And I know some of my slides may be a little dated, Jacob, so I'm sure we'll get some updated ones, but you guys get the idea. Okay, this is what I want to spend a little bit of time on. So how do we make money at this? Well, first of all, you guys want to produce this stuff. That's the first and foremost thing. The street level commission, as you can see, is really, really strong. And that includes both that EBA product, which again is the workhorse of the platform, but also with America's Choice and gig care. So I want to make sure everybody knows how to read this. So first, take a look at the street. The street level to every agent. Yep, everybody makes the same. So you don't have to worry like, oh, am I taking a cut of this? Nope. Every agent, you can talk to them about what the comp is. So again, on that EBA product, you're going to get 80 as an agent. On America's Choice, you're going to get 88. There is also a category called top producer. And the way somebody gets the top producer comp, is it 30, Jacob, to get the top producer? Yeah. So once you have 30 households, then you automatically get put up to the top producer comp. Doesn't affect the street. So that's how you get to that top producer, hit 30. And there's a pretty good number of people that are in that category. Not a ton, but a good number of them. Okay. So now that you know how agents get paid, the question is, how do I make overrides? Well, the beauty of this thing is that overrides are pre-built into it. So every time you recruit somebody, they're going to be in your hierarchy, and it's all tracked right up front. Jacob, when he contracts the agent for all of these products, there's one contracting process. I don't know if I mentioned that. That agent automatically will be put into your downline hierarchy automatically. And every time an agent below you produces with that EBA product, you're going to make an $8 per month override. On that America's Choice and Gig Care, it's $7. Do you see that? $8 and $7. Everybody see that level one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what happens if that agent who is at that level one, by the way, what commission, street level commission, I gave it away, crap. I was going to say, what commission does that agent make? And the answer is, yeah, they get the street. Everybody gets the street. But on top of the street, by recruiting somebody, you're going to get either $8 per member per month for the EBA product or $7 for America's Choice. Okay. Now, what are these other levels? Well, what happens if the agent you recruit, what if they recruit somebody? Can they do that? Yep. And then you would get a $4 override on top of what those people did. And then, as you can imagine, and $3.50 for America's Choice. And the same thing that goes down to the next level. What happens if that person recruits somebody? Well, then you get $2. Of course, the next question is, what happens if it's 4 levels down? The answer is there is nothing. This caps out at 3 levels below the street. Sorry, 3 levels above the street is probably a better way to say it. Okay. I know there's a lot of stuff. This is a very different way of calculating compensation. So this is a good time to ask questions. First of all, does everybody understand the street? Everybody got that?
Yes.
Makes sense? Okay. So does everybody understand an agent can go above the street by having 30 households with the top producer comp? Does everybody get that?
Yes, but I have a question about that, Andy.
Yes.
So if I have 30 apps in or 30 clients, do I start to get the top producer amount on my 31st, or does it retro back?
Jacob, you want to handle that one?
Retro back.
Okay.
So it'll be not retro back to their first effective date, but let's say in September, let's say you had 29 active households on the EBA product, you're at 80, right? And then in October, you've got 31. We would start paying you $90 on all 31 in October. So it's a nice pay raise, certainly.
Okay. And then I have one other question. It's not related to compensation, Andy. So
No, it's okay. Yep.
Okay. So Jacob, and I just got appointed, so I haven't even really looked through all this yet. But I have a potential client who her husband is leaving his company. They have insurance until I think October or November, but she has MS and she gets injections twice a year. Is she only able to be on ACA, or would any of these plans work?
Certainly she can apply for underwriting with EBA to see what kind of offer they would give her. EBA, the way they underwrite is more money in versus money out rather than being so condition specific. So let me give you a great example. There you have a diabetic type 2 that applies taking generic metformin, and you have a diabetic type 2 that applies taking Ozempic. They're likely going to approve the diabetic type 2 taking a generic metformin, and they're likely going to decline the diabetic type 2 taking, specialty Ozempic, because collecting $500 to pay out $1,000 or two, collecting $500 to pay out 20. So they're really looking at what is the money in, money out today. So the reason I also tell you that is in her situation, she's getting a couple injections a year. the more family members that she's applying with, the more money that's going into her contract, the more likely she's going to be approved at a better rate. So dependents do help. So I don't want to overcomplicate underwriting because, sometimes we look at underwriting as being so focused on a condition. And of course, there are some, conditions that are going to knock someone out. But it's not like most carriers that underwrite. I mean, they're looking more at, what's really happening, today. So I would have her apply, not to say that she could be approved. Maybe she is. If she is, and we like the offer, then accept it. And if she doesn't like the offer, she may be able to answer no to all the gig care or the America's Choice questions, and maybe that route would be better. But we don't know until we see the final offer. But
Okay.
and that's really how the platform's built. Is you can start with EBA and we can work our way sideways. From what Andy showed.
And when I was talking to some of your top producers at our agent conference, Jacob, that was sort of their approach. They're like, look, anybody that isn't heavily subsidized, we're just putting them into this and we'll figure it out later because most of the people are getting approved. So to not give them this opportunity, they just did it as part of their routine.
Okay.
Clearly, if you've got somebody with a really substantial chronic condition, obviously, guys, that's what the ACA is for. And that's the way I'd like everybody to be thinking about it. If you have people that are poor or in poor health, ACA is the way to go.
Okay.
Well, I think another thing I just want to add to that is when you're doing the Cigna PPO plan, those rates that you see on the sheet are, at a certain level. So after underwriting, they may get that rate. They could get lower, they could get higher, I believe. So keep in mind, those rates that you see on the sheet are not an absolute. They're kind of an estimate. And is that how you describe it?
It is. That's a really great point to bring up, because what we do is we look at underwriting quarterly and look at, what has our history been? Because sometimes underwriting will get a little tighter, sometimes they'll get a little bit looser. And so we just kind of look at the historic averages, and that the rate sheet is an average rate that we're saying. So we actually do see just as many people come back with a lower rate as we do a higher rate. So we just say that, that's a good rate to quote. When someone's looking at, when you've got a major medical buyer, a PPO buyer, $50, $60 a month is not going to, break the deal in most cases. So I would look at the consumer and quote them and say, hey, if this is the member only rate, it could be $50 or $60 higher, could be $50 or $60 lower. If you can live with that, we should apply. If you can't, then maybe we got to look at a different product, right? Same on a family. Family ranges about $100 to $150 lower, higher, just depending post underwriting. So if you always think kind of 50 to 150 from that member to family, that's a good way to really look at it. But that's a pretty close estimate. We do see those numbers hit quite a few times because underwriting is not necessarily looking at someone just for health. I mean, age is a factor. We get individuals that come in and say, I should get a preferred rate. It's like, well, you were 62. So age is a rate in health insurance, no matter how healthy you are. So, that's why we use those averages on that. But that's a good point.
For those of you who've been in the business, this is how major medical was sold for most of my career up until the ACA. This is exactly how it worked. This is how major medical was sold. This is how it was underwritten. None of what Jacob was describing is really new. It's just that the ACA came in and said, yep, we're going to make everybody guaranteed issue, and we're going to put all these benefits in there, and we're going to drive the price up and narrow the network. Other questions? Good questions, Tracy. I think underwriting is an important part of this and important to everybody to understand.
Andy, this is Tammy. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the EBA, what are the requirements for enrollment? So like AC and gig care, they have to have 1099. What is the requirement for EBA?
EBA doesn't carry that. I mean, on a technicality, that requirement is there, but really when you look at EBA, the Employer Business Association, that's the actual mechanism that someone's accessing a group policy. So in the framework of someone enrolling, they're they're joining the EBA association and they're joining their, technically a company. So it checks all those boxes, if you will, for someone to access. America's Choice, Gig Care, they're legal. Because every one of these plans, they are all group plans at the end of the day that individuals are accessing on an individual basis. And so each of them have their own different legal framework that they've
Mechanism,
created to make sure they can access. So America's Choice and Gig Care, their legal framework, they want that 1099 up front, all of that, where the EBA framework does not require it. So same with the rest of our plans. They're more association driven, where they're joining an association and can access the benefits. So
Okay, thanks.
But none of them
Good
are
question.
on that limited partnership chassis where you got to download an app and all that screwy crap. Okay.
no,
Hey, I mean, you're shaking your head. We've done that for, I don't know, Len, how many years have we been telling our clients to download apps? Long time.
Going back to the underwriting though, I do want to say, when we look at the EBA offering specifically, and although that can be written on an individual basis, it is a very, very strong offering in group. And, group is kind of the same way. The more premium dollars that are in there, the lower and lower the final underwritten approval is going to be. A really good talking point for all of you to take with you when you're talking to employers is when we have 10 employees or more, all we need is a census. We can take a census to EBA and they will underwrite and give us a binding final underwritten rate just off of a census. We don't need any health apps. All we need is employee name, date of birth, gender, and address. We don't even need a social. So as long as we get their full name, their date of birth, their address, their gender, and then same for their dependents, name, date of birth, gender, then we can produce a final binding underwritten rate. And some of the rates we're getting back from that are very strong and such a good talking point to a business owner, because we're in the business of producing binding final underwritten rates. We're not in the business of just producing a quote for you. So if you're talking to a business owner, you got 10 plus employees, the amount of time it would take to just run a quote that's not going to be the quote when underwriting's done, just to get you to spend all this time and fill out all these apps. No, just give me the census you have on file with HR. I'm going to come back and give you something that's the exact deal, and take it or leave it. So it's a really, we're having a lot of success on that front.
And Jason, just so you know, we're doing about as much group as we are individual with this platform. It's not exactly one for one, but it's a lot of groups too, as well.
Okay, great.
And all of this can be done all in one place. So a couple last things, because I know I only scheduled this for half an hour and everybody's going to need to jump off. So just kind of in summary, you've got on the left-hand corner, you can stack all these products with a single enrollment billing and all the products you're going to need all in one place. You don't have to do certifications. You don't have to record calls. Most states, and there's a single contract, Jason. I don't know if I mentioned that to you. So when you recruit an agent, all they have to do is get contracted with Jacob. And they don't have to go because that's one of the questions I might ask, like, there's 20 different carriers on here. How do I contract 20 different carriers? You don't. You contract once with USA Health Plans and you're eligible to sell everything.
Andy,
Great.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What's turnaround in underwriting? What's turnaround if I submit an app on group and individual? What's turnaround?
Individual is typically going to be 3 business days or less. As we get into the peak of open enrollment, that could go to 4 days, maybe 5. We're typically able to keep it, right around that 3 days though. Group underwriting is typically going to be, you almost want to account for just assume, 7 business days, just because there's some extra manual processes that take place. Because when you send us a census to do census-based underwriting, we're actually going to take that out to bid at, at least 3, maybe 4 different underwriters and reinsurance. So sometimes we can produce group back in 3 days. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 days. And by the time we sort it and send it out. So, individual, you on average expect 3 days or less. Group, about a week or less.
That's still pretty good, Sharon, considering when we do all state level funded, we tell agents 60 days.
Wow.
We tell them to be prepared to have the process to go 60 days. So yeah, a week, that's significant.
Jacob, one last last question. I've seen on the Facebook page where people are saying, be careful of these plans because they're ERISA plans. Understand the difference between ERISA and the regular ACA marketplace. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, these plans are built on ERISA's framework, which is a group chassis. And that's what does make them a little bit different than a traditional state filed plan that may run through the marketplace or, just be a state filed, United Healthcare plan, if you will, for an individual. So all of these plans are group plans that members are joining on an individual basis, or they're able to come in on a true W-2 sponsored basis, right? Rates may be a little bit different, but benefits are overall the same. ERISA is the mechanism that's used, and the reason that we use ERISA is because we can fly like the wind. We can move a lot faster. We can create uniform products, uniform pricing, stuff like that. But ERISA at the end of the day is where most group policies run. So it's just managed underneath a different regulatory body. So most of our products are, although the DOI has some place in it, really they're governed by ERISA laws and small group laws, if that makes sense. So that's why when we talk about America's Choice and you need to be self-employed and in EBA, you're going to join an association and be part of that company. Those are all the frameworks that allow someone to get an individual group policy, and that has to go through ERISA. That can't go through. You can't do group if that makes sense.
I've seen some of that noise out on social media. Guys, please do not let agents try to become regulatory experts. I see some of that stuff. I don't know what they're talking about. Don't let that kind of noise. And I recognize everybody's got their own objective. Probably a bunch of ACA people and not wanting, anything to compete with ACA. I get it. But they don't know what they're talking about. Don't read stuff from an agent and say, oh, there's some kind of regulatory expert. We've been selling these kinds of products for 7 years now.
Yeah, seven, 8
this
years.
isn't new. We sold that enrollment first product since the beginning. It has worked. I wouldn't go by what agents are saying. But,
yeah.
In
And
fact,
I would say that another real benefit of working with our platform is that we're built on multiple different ERISA chassis. So if there's one ERISA chassis that the regulators don't like in the future and it needs to close, again, we hold all the members. And if you tell us to switch plans, we just check the box and switch plans, versus them being off with the carrier direct and you've lost all of that control, So not that I don't see any regulatory issues on the frameworks that we're using because they've been around for a long time. There's been some favorable rulings in the past years. We're very comfortable with it. But it is something that you need to know and be aware of, that they are all group policies. And that's the one thing you don't want to misrepresent, that someone's got this binding contract that they're guaranteed forever, because that's not how it works. But it's not how it works on healthcare.gov either. The plan's going to change next year,
But let's also remember that the ERISA chassis has the most members of any chassis in America. There's about 100 million Americans on a group plan governed by ERISA. Medicare only has about 50 million. The ACA only has like 20 million, and ERISA has 100 million. So needless to say, this is not, experimenting and playing on the edges. Now, granted, we're using ERISA to the individual and family market. I don't disagree that is different from General Motors. I'll use a Detroit connection since we have Jason and Tammy on the call. But don't think that ERISA is some weird, law that nobody knows about or is aware of. You got 100 million Americans on that.
Yeah, and virtually all of our products are running on A-rated paper. So there's an A-rated company behind it, reinsuring it. There's big names like Nationwide, or, Serious Point. These are all, big reinsurance companies. So a lot of good TPAs. We use Loomis as one of our TPAs. I mean, that's a monster TPA. And and I can't say all ACA alternatives are created equal, because it is a little bit of the Wild West. And I think that's kind of some agents' concerns that you may see out there, because there are some fly-by-night plans, and It is a little bit of the Wild West, but, we try our best to make sure we're sourcing really good relationships, really good, reinsurance contracts and TPAs to make sure that this can be, viable for you for, now and going forward.
I'm sorry this call went a little over, guys. My suggestion is for those from North American, circle back with Lynn and she'll discuss with you guys some next steps. Jason, let's you and I follow up and talk about your team and figure out if this is something that's a good fit for what you're trying to do.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Very good, guys. Thanks so much for the time. This call was recorded, so if you missed anything, we'll have the recording put up soon. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Jacob. Thanks, guys, for joining.
Yep, you bet. Thanks, everyone. See ya.